She's, I could only imagine. I can only imagine. That's the thing about where we're at in our recovery. Everyone has a different job. Not everyone's going to be designed to be a foot. Not everyone's going to be designed to be a hand. Not everyone's going to be designed to stand up in the front of the microphone and speak. We all have different jobs. And I do encourage people to try different things. I also encourage you to try what God gave you. What did God give you in your recovery? Now, a lot of the skills that we learned in our addictions and our hurt and our pain and our habits are things that God was trying to give us, except we just misused them. But they weren't a waste. It was an absolute skill building set for me to know when I needed to have X amount of dollars at what time and where I needed to be at. There were some organizational business skills that needed to transpire and take place, but it just didn't need to take place to get dope. But I knew I do need those in my everyday life. I do need to learn patience with people. And it's sad because I've said this many times in here, but for the newcomer that's in here that tells me, I don't have patience, I can't stand people. I'm like, you lie, bro. Because you wait on the dope man for hours in his driveway if you thought he was coming. If that dude told you he was going to be there in an hour, you'd still be sitting there 4 hours later, mad, right? Avoiding every phone call from your wife or your husband, because you know the minute you get in that car and you go down the street, what's going to happen? Yeah, dude, yeah, he's going to pull it. Right. You see, you've been there. So what you do is you get mad enough to say you're leaving and you take off around the block, and when you turn that corner, you just happen to see maybe a light possibly. And you go around that block and you sit there for 20 more minutes. We have patience. What we choose and how we choose to use that in a recovery is all up to where God wants us to do with it and what he wants us to do with it. Too many times we're trying to figure out that I need to do this and I need to be here and I need to be there. And God is just sitting back and looking, and he's going, Jason, when you're done, let me know. Because when you want to run around and when you quit running around and you're tired, let me know. And then I'll send you, bro. I'll send you. Me and Jan used to live at, where did we live, Jan? At the first set of apartments. O'Brien. So we lived at the O'Brien apartments in Seymour. And I absolutely love it there. I bet I did. It was the most active place in Seymour, and if I went to the bathroom or woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I looked out the window, something or someone was going on. And I would just sit there, and I'm like, ooh, look at this, watch this. And then I'd try to go get Jan. Hey, come here and watch this. She's like, leave me alone. Okay. She wasn't quite as interested as I was. But one day I was sitting there, and it was actually daylight, and I was looking out the window, and I watched all these birds, and they were in the V-shaped birds, and they were flying out of town. It's getting cold, right? And they're leaving. Big birds. Big long-legged birds. And there were tons of them, and I was like, all right, we know what's coming. And then as I'm looking out the window, I see these little birds, and they're all over the place, under cars, in trees, over cars, under cars, around cars, flying in circles, just tiring themselves out, chasing each other. And I realized at that moment, when I started looking at the people, that we're all the same way. We are either a little bird that's flying around that doesn't really have a purpose but survival and is going to the same spot repeatedly 25 times in a day, hoping that there's something new, hoping that there's something to be had, something to be gained. And you're not. You're just flying to the same spot over and over again. And if you're like us and you're this addict in addiction, you're that little bird that doesn't have a purpose, that's just flying around for survival. Getting tired. Going back to the same place you just left, trying to find something that's going to fill you, and it doesn't. And you just keep flying. Or we get into recovery and we look up in the sky and we're now these big birds that have a purpose and a direction. We have a place to go to. We have a place that for some reason we're not sure how to get there, but if God is guiding us, we are following, we're going to arrive. And what we do is we get to our destination and we look down at these little birds that are flying around in survival mode, and it's just sad. And so I realized, and although I was still doing meth, and I was like, I want to be one of those birds that goes somewhere with purpose. But I didn't know who to fly with. But I knew all the other little birds I was running around that flew with. And now I'm in a point in my recovery where I finally understand where God is trying to take me. Now, it doesn't mean that I know where the destination is. But I do understand where God is trying to take me. And I no longer ever have to fly around in chaos and panic in survival mode just trying to find something that's not going to help me. But I do know that I need to slow down long enough in recovery for God to speak to me so that I can go with purpose in what I do today. And that's what our recoveries have got to be about. Our recoveries have got to be about our purpose. We're not here to waste time. God is not going to waste our time in our recovery. Everything that we do can have a meaning, can have a purpose. And then if you look into some of the early chapters in the Old Testament, in, where am I at? It's my favorite verse, and what's my favorite verse? No, not Jeremiah. Anyway, he's telling us that in our designation in Exodus 20:22, he's telling us that when we go into our designation and we're following where God has taken us to, he's going to send an angel ahead of us to guard us. So we're going to be provided with 3 things right off the bat if we start following God: protection, a purpose, and provisions, resources. If we don't choose to take those things and we choose to be in active addiction, we're going to be that little bird that continually flies around. I'm not saying that all of us are going to die, but some of us die at the age of 20 and we're waiting to be buried when we get 80. And that's still no way to live, man. That is no way to live. But when we start following what God's plan is and we start following our Exodus, he will give us the destination, the purpose, the plan, the provisions, and everything. And then he'll give us the angel that's going to guard us. But I don't get my angel going to the place where God prepared me if I'm sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing. Here's another thing. And I love Celebrate Recovery, obviously. But your destination and your plan isn't just coming here sitting in these seats week after week. I love the numbers. Absolutely. I love the numbers and the attention. I love coming up here speaking in front of you, and if it fills every nasty little attic void in me that I need, it really does. And I'm just being honest. It fills all my needs to be recognized and acknowledged and pat on the back. I need that. I'm not near as confident as what I let everybody know. I'm not. I hate it. And I hate it because I sit at home, and when you guys aren't looking, I'm sitting on my couch, and I'm looking at Jan, and I'm like, I'm not really all this good. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. And she's like, we just pray and we'll find out. And then one of you guys called, and I'm like, hey, man, what's up? Hey, I got you. Don't worry about it. Let's go do. I'm not that confident, but I know when I look for God in my life and I look for his plan and purpose, God fills me up with some words, man, sometimes. He fills me up with some confidence. And then I just go and I do what he's told, and it never fails yet. It never fails yet. Because I'm not going to pretend that I know what the outcome is, but I do understand what the purpose is. God is not going to send me back into a dope house. He's not going to send me back to the dope man. He's not going to make me lose my kids. He's not going to make me crash vehicles. And I was really good at that too. Horrible, wasn't I? But when I have plan, purpose, and intent, and I'm looking for what God's telling me. Now, the last thing I'm going to tell you, then what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and then we're going to have you guys come up and share some victory stories with everybody. I'm going to tell you this last story. I have a sponsor. Now, I absolutely disagree with anybody doing this, even myself. But I have a bad thing about if I get a sponsor, because I know I need one, it takes 2 weeks and 1 meeting, and then all of a sudden he's firing me, asking me to be his sponsor. I've never been able to have a sponsor that will keep me, and he will fire me and say, I need to be my sponsor. I went to a therapist because that's what probation wanted me to do. And as I sat there with this therapist and we were talking, she realized that I had better degrees than what she had. And within 3 weeks, I was sitting there doing counseling for her. And I was paying for it. And it was just really got weird. And so I have ability to run my mouth long enough to avoid certain things, and then I get what I want. That's basically what I want, yeah. So I have 2 online sponsors that are pastors that anytime I have an issue developing up in my life, I type in what that description is, I type in that pastor, and I shut my mouth and I listen to everything he has to say about it. And then when he says everything he has to say about it, then I try to get up my other pastor, because you know how you guys are, right? If the one person doesn't tell you what you want to hear, you'll go someone else. Oh, I still do that online, though. You know what I'm saying? Old character defect. So I go to my other pastor, and I type in the same thing and what he's got to say, and then it boils down to, I am always wrong. And I learned something. And I'm so thankful that I seek answers today. And I'm so thankful that God speaks to me through other people. And I'm so glad that God speaks to me through circumstance. And so what all that was to say this. When I got into recovery, what I learned was that I was so uncomfortable, even though I wanted this, it was almost like you are wearing a wedding suit at a swimming pool. Now, all of us will look really good in a tuxedo. You'll look fantastic. And when we're around other people that are wearing tuxedos or in a good dinner place, we're going to look fantastic. But as soon as you take yourself out of that element and you put yourself in a strange place like a swimming pool, a city swimming pool, and you're wearing a tuxedo, all of a sudden you don't feel so good looking. And you start questioning how you look. And then people walk by you that are in shorts and they're like, and then you feel the need to explain yourself of why you're dressed a certain way. But you don't really want to address anybody in particular, so you start speaking loud enough to nobody so everybody can hear why you're dressed the way you are. Well, I have a wedding to go to, and I'm the best man, and I just wanted to stop by. Like everyone's listening, and they are probably. But the point is that even in our best, when we look our best and feel our best, and we come in to celebrate recovery, and we want this, for a short period of time, we're going to feel uncomfortable. And we're going to feel a need to explain ourselves. And then when you run into people at Aldi's and stuff and they ask you how you're doing and you say, I just got out of rehab or I just got out of jail, I got 5 felonies, that's none of their business. Don't do that. You owe nobody an explanation. God knows where you're at because he brought you here. All you need to do is tell them that you are blessed, you're forgiven, you're loved, and if they need a place to go, you can bring them here too. Don't explain yourself from where God has brought you. You owe nobody that. But you make sure that you continue to be thankful and grateful for what you're learning and where you're going. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take like a 5-minute break, 8-minute break, however long it takes for you smokers to smoke. And we're going to come back in and we're going to do 3-minute, 4-minute small testimony victories where everyone's going to come up here one at a time and just share what God is doing in your life.